So for my presentation, my part of the presentation today, I will be working as a counselor who is working with a female older, as an adult, but experienced the traumatic event as a child. So as our team is working with natural disasters, in the case that I'll be working with, the child experienced a hurricane, was displaced from her home, had to move, the home was destroyed, lost her pets, so it was very devastating to experience as a young child. Many years later, the client would then experience different triggers and panic attacks. From one point, the basement flooded, another point, sirens from volunteer fire alarm, but she wasn't really able to connect these experiences going back into what happened to her in her childhood. And so we fast forward to the actual meeting with the client. At this point, we're going to be talking about how these different experiences connect into the traumatic event that was experienced as a child, and how this kind of rolls into what would be considered post-traumatic stress. And I help explain to the client how these events that she experienced, even though she may not be consciously aware of it, subconsciously her brain is reacting and releasing stress hormones, and that is impacting and leaving her with the panic attacks. So we're going to talk through that, and then ending with leading into moving forward in the future, what we can do with mindfulness techniques to help her regain control of her body. So, hi Celeste, thank you for coming in again today. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for asking. I'm looking forward to coming to see you again today.
Good, good. Well, thank you. Just as kind of a recap of what we were talking about last week before we head into, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that you have felt comfortable opening up to me about the hurricane experience that you had as a child. I can hear that this was a really scary time for you.
It was pretty scary. As I'm getting a little older, my family is telling me a little more, because I say things that, even though I don't really remember it, different triggers, and they're like, where are you getting that from? And I'm just like, I don't know. I said, there's just something about it that I'm makes me nervous and anxious, whenever I hear certain noises, and they're just not piecing it together. Even though I was so young for the event, they just didn't think I would remember as much from it. And it really is putting a halter on some things.
Yeah. So, you were a child, and as you expressed, your family had to be evacuated from your home, and then your home ended up being destroyed due to the flooding. And I can only imagine how scared you must have felt, and the pain that you still feel when you think about these things. You had also mentioned that your family had to leave your pets behind, and that they unfortunately did not survive the storm. And that you'd mentioned this was particularly hard for you because your dog had been kind of your protector and best friend. So I'm really sorry that you went through that experience. So what I'm hearing is that the hurricane on TV re-triggered a lot of feelings for you, and that seeing the devastation about the displacement of families and pets being left behind has triggered flashbacks and memories for you. And I just want you to know this is a very natural response that someone that has survived a traumatic experience, such as a natural disaster, will feel. So what you're going through is something that, it's a natural body response to it. And we're going to kind of talk about and explain why this is happening, and then what we can do to help moving forward. Is that okay?
Yeah, I definitely will go for that.
Okay. Do you know how trauma can affect an individual even years after the event has taken place? Were you aware of that?
It's something kind of new. I'm still trying to piece together how this could be coming from something so long ago. I can't say I completely understand how it's all happening now at this point in my life.
Okay, so I'm going to try to help you understand some of that as part of the first thing to go through. So once we understand kind of what's going on in our bodies, we can then kind of better understand how we can help with the reaction that's happening. So what you're experiencing is considered part of post-traumatic stress. And have you heard of this before?
I have heard of that. A lot with veterans from war and that, but not essentially with this kind of situation.
Well, it is probably best known for war veteran experience. So you're absolutely right with that, and making that connection to kind of how that works. So what the war veteran experience is with the flashbacks, what you hear from that, is very similar to, can happen to anybody who's experience a traumatic event, in this case, the natural disaster that you went through. So basically, when someone experiences a traumatic event, that leaves an imprint on the brain. So there's certain triggers, such as you mentioned, the flooding in your basement or the volunteer firefighter sirens, and seeing the hurricane on TV from Puerto Rico. These can put you back into a mental state that feels like you're re-experiencing the original event. So as you mentioned with the water, it was not a large amount of water, but just seeing the flood in the basement, you had that rush of panic. It's probably very similar to what you experienced as a child, seeing what's happening in the area around you. So it's your subconscious reaction. Your brain kind of gets stuck in a loop from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have a better understanding after that. Now that like it's not just for like war veterans and people like those, you know what I mean? Like definitely cleared the lot for me.
Good. Yeah, and a visual way that I can try to put it so that kind of makes sense with the whole way that it works. If you imagine a record on a record player, so you can see that as the record spinning around, and then you put the needle down, and then the sound starts to play from the record. If that record has a scratch in it, if you will, as the needle hits that point, sometimes the record can jump and it'll replay that same line of the record again. So can you kind of follow along how that's going?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing of like the record getting stuck on repeat. It's a very simplified explanation, but it's kind of what can happen after a traumatic event, where that scratch in the record interferes with the normal function of the record. And even though the rest of it could be playing fine, when it hits that spot again, it'll have that jump. So does that visual help a little bit?
Definitely, I like that example that you used. I never thought of something like that, but definitely where you get stuck on a CD in that one point and just so repetitive, definitely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Good, I'm glad. Uh, sorry, that's the therapy dog in the background playing on her bone. Um, so in everyday life, we will encounter situations where our brain has to work with our senses to naturally react to the world around us. So sometimes for a high stress situation, our brain goes what is considered fight, flight, or freeze mode. And have you heard of this before, of the fight or flight?
I have heard of fight or flight before.
Okay. And so what do you understand about the fight or flight?
I mean, like when your adrenaline now, I mean, just takes over. I mean, flight, you know what I mean? Like just you don't even think twice about anything. It's just such an automatic response, you know, that takes place.
No, and that's exactly right. So it's basically the way that our systems, going back for as long as humans have been around, for survival instinct, when our bodies we're in a situation that is a high stress situation, your brain works faster than the rest of your body can think and react. So that kind of puts you into that fight or flight or freeze position. And it's really a survival instinct that helps us get through general situations. So as your body reacts to this and your brain's sending off these signals, it then will trigger the stress hormones around you to increase your adrenaline, to kind of with your breathing and everything, so that you can quickly move and get out so that you're safe. And when you were a child, even though you were a child when the hurricane hit, you experienced that very high stress situation that would trigger this response within your system. And not only from that, you're also picking up on what's going on around you. So if your family, your loved ones are in a hyper arousal state and they're making quick decisions and rushing around, and you can feel that stress, that will also weigh on you as well. So you may not directly have understood what was happening because you were so young. Your body understood what was happening, and that feeling seems to have stuck with, and that's what leads to the post-traumatic stress.
That's definitely very helpful because I feel like I was just in a box. I didn't think anybody would understand what was happening, and not gonna lie, I kind of thought I was a little crazy because I was like, why am I getting all this feeling and thoughts, you know, when certain things were happening? But I definitely feel better, and now that I have a clearer understanding as to a lot of my responses that have been happening, it definitely makes more sense.
Yeah, it's a perfectly natural response that your body's going through, and there's nothing that you did wrong that is making this happen. And it's not that you are experiencing anything out of the box, that you are the only person to go through it. There are a lot of people who go through this, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck in this position. And there are definitely ways to help with the coaxing skills so that it will feel better for you, and ways that you can take control over your body and kind of take that control back as you're moving forward. So to practice these techniques with you, and so you feel comfortable and confident being able to do these on your own, and then have you practice them. And we'll talk about how the different things affect you.
Okay.
Because in the long run, we want to make sure that you're comfortable with it. And as we talk more about the incidents with the natural disaster and everything that's moving forward, I just want you to know that you are in control of our conversations. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable talking, I want you to let me know. And we can stop conversation, we can redirect, and we're going to go as far into it as you feel good, and we'll practice as we go along. So does that be okay with you?
Yep, no, I definitely would look forward to doing that when I come back next time. If I have any questions in regards to any of those, I can ask them and I'll write them down that time in between.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you for your time coming in today. I look forward to meeting with you next week.
Thank you. All right. Hi, my name is Celeste. My client will be Amanda. I'm going to give some background information on Amanda. Amanda is from California. She has 2 children and a husband. Her home recently, within the last year, suffered a major wildfire in her neighborhood and surrounding areas. All of her family lives in this surrounding area as well. With that being said, they pretty much do not have anybody but each other, and they've currently been placed in a shelter for the last 9 months. Amanda lost 2 animals, 2 dogs at home during this tragic accident that happened throughout their community. While in the shelter, Amanda has been suffering from a lot of trauma. She finds herself not being able to sleep at night, just waking up startled out of nowhere, very upset being the fact that this is where her children were growing up, and this is where she was brought up as well. Her parents only lived a couple houses down the street from her, so she pretty much at this point feels like her whole childhood has been gone. Demolished at this point. There is literally nothing left in her community. Also, she's having flashbacks, like anything like going to cook something in the shelter. She definitely finds herself like very hesitant when it comes to doing anything flame related. She's been having her husband help a lot with that, and she used to be pretty much the housewife as far as cooking in the home, and definitely has not been doing what she has. And her husband has noticed that she's been acting extremely different, upset and not really talking a lot about anything. They are still going to work at the moment, just commuting and staying at the shelter. Even people from Amanda's job have been saying how she hasn't been herself at work and just very down, and this has definitely had a huge impact on Amanda. All right. Hi, Amanda. I thank you for coming back in today.
Hi. You're welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. So last time we talked, I got some information on your situation. I know you had said that all your family has been in the shelter. Do you have any like friends nearby that would be able to help?
So I have some friends that live in the area, but the ones who I've been able to reach out to and reconnect with, some of them are also in shelters. Just found out we're in different shelters. And I do have a friend that lives about an hour away. Is probably the closest, but I don't want to reach out to her because I feel a little like she's really far away. I don't want to inconvenience her and make her drive and travel. And
No, that's understandable with having kids and a husband, and as well as your other family. I'm sure you want to stay kind of close to them. Mm-hmm. So is there anything that you feel like triggers you? Like, do you get like very anxious or nervous during anything? Like,
I've noticed that in particular, when I go to kind of make food or cook or kind of be around anything that has flame, it kind of like the smell of something burning really starts to like wear on me, and it makes me really uncomfortable, and I kind of have to stop what I'm doing.
Understandable.
Take over, and it makes me feel really dumb that I can't do these things that I used to just do. I thought maybe it's because I'm working out of a shelter. I don't know what's happening, but it feels, I don't know.
Yeah, and a trigger is something that is completely normal with the traumatic event that you've had, like yourself, as far as a natural disaster. You will notice there's different noises, things that you're going to do that you're just like, whoa, why is this bothering me? Or why am I getting shaky? And you're going to really pick up on triggers from now on, I feel like. And it's definitely important to take note of those and to talk about them as well, you know, and don't feel like anything is too little to bring up in any of our sessions. Like that's what we're here for, okay?
Mhm.
Um, do you get help or anything like with cooking? Like is your family still able to eat? Does somebody assist you like when you need to step away from that zone?
Yeah, my husband's really good at kind of jumping in and helping when needed. And
Okay.
my kids are pretty efficient as well. They're able to help make meals and kind of take care of things and do some
Okay.
laundry and whatever as well.
And how old are your children?
So my youngest is 8 and my oldest is 14.
Okay. And it's definitely important to, you know, help them out too in the same perspective. You know, it's a lot for one family to handle at one time, that's for sure, you know, but you definitely are in the right mindset and you're going to come out of this in a positive note. You're a determined person.
Thank you.
So one question I do have is at work, like your job, like do they have anything set up for you and your family to help you?
Right after the fires, they kind of set up a donation fund, so we were able to get some clothing items and extras like supplies that kind of
Good.
nothing big. You just what people could afford or like left like things they had in their home that they could donate.
Any little bit helps,
Mhm.
that's for sure. Now at work, do you notice anything different with your daily routine at work since all this has been occurring, like being in a shelter and not having your home essentially at this point?
I feel like at work, I end up being like I get so into my work to not have to deal with anything else, and so I don't really. It's not that it feels different per se. I feel like I need to. If I let my mind wander, then I start to feel stressed about where are we going to move, what are we going to do next, where are all
Okay.
the steps. So I just kind of
Okay. So work is pretty much like a relief or a mental break for you at times.
it can be, or just a way to not let my mind wander into every what if that could happen.
Okay. Very good. Well, it's good that you are going to work still and, you know, staying focused on everything. You do have two kids and that, so you have a good head on your shoulders. I did want to ask a little more about with the fire and that.
Hmm.
You did say how with the cooking and that, like you do kind of have flashbacks as far as that. How about with like sirens? And I mean, I'm sure you saw a lot of fire trucks, you know, water like hoses and everything, like ambulance and so forth, coming to rescue those who were still in their homes or something at that point. Do you feel like any of those noises have anything to do with being anxious or anything?
Oh yeah, I can't watch the news anymore. I can't see anything that it makes me feel it just takes me right back to us having to leave the home and I can close my eyes now and just hear it all. It's not easy.
So, like, what do you do instead of watching the TV? Do you go like with the kids and do something, or do you kind of distract yourself? Like, if your mother's watching the news or your husband, like, do you kind of go somewhere else? Like, what do you tend to do to get away from that?
I end up just diving back into work. I take things home with me from work, so I just stay busy.
Okay, very good. At least you know like what your triggers are. That's very important, as I previously said, to know. Do you guys have a plan? Like, will they eventually let you rebuild on your property? Have you,
Mm, I don't know if I want to go back there.
do you think you'll have a lot of flashbacks when that, if you were to go back there?
Yeah, it's tough because I grew up in that area and that's where all of my memories are. But I think it's too hard right now to even think about
Okay,
that take me back to the fear instead of all the good times from growing up.
understandable. Did you ever talk to anybody else in the shelter? Do you feel like there's other people, like other parents that are having similar flashbacks? Like, is this something that they've brought up there?
Yeah, we have a group that we talk and kind of share our experiences of what it was like to have to rush out and what it would be like to go back.
Okay. Do you feel like that's helping, or have you attended, should I ask?
I have attended, and it is helpful to know I'm not alone.
Okay. I think it's definitely something good that they offer. You know, support groups are very helpful for any traumatic event to let people know that they're not alone at any time. Is there anything that a hobby or something activity that you do to distract yourself or to get your mind refocused on the present time?
I've gotten into crocheting
Okay, that's very good. I love crafts.
patterns at the shelter.
Okay, good. I love doing no sew blankets with the fleece, and
Hmm.
for kids, coloring. Can never be too old to color my book. um, have you ever thought about any like meditation or kind of yoga, like when you're very anxious to just focus and go by yourself and give yourself a peace of mind with everything that you've been going through the last year roughly?
No, I'm not very familiar with the process. Can you elaborate
Okay.
more of what you?
So yoga is something I highly recommend. It gets you kind of in a meditation state, to very like focus solely on the present time and to release everything from the past. There's various poses to yoga. Um, Pretty much you don't use any equipment. At most, a yoga mat you could use, and that's something to lay on. But there's all different poses. You could put your like arms out and then bend your knees and slouch down. This kind of gets your mind to focus and be at ease. Is that something you would ever consider doing?
I think that's something I could do. It sounds like something I might be able to even get my kids involved with.
They do offer it for children as well. I'm sure it's a little more interactive and
Mhm.
entails other things to keep them a little more focused.
Mhm.
On top of the yoga as well, I think like tapping, I know you previously mentioned that, but that's something I actually did when I had a traumatic event in my life. I was There was just certain things I couldn't get past, and I think it really gets your focus. So what you do is you use like three fingers and you tap different points of your upper body. So you start like on the eyebrows, and then you go down the side, and then you tap below the eye,
Mhm.
below the nose, your chin area you tap, and then you go over here to your side, and then up your clavicle you go. Um, and that's something, and as you're doing that, you speak different things. So in your situation with being that you lost your home from a wildfire, and that you would say things that go wrong, even though I lost my home, I still have my family. And this will help you find the positive and, be thankful for what you have now, and again, focus on the present time. Is that something that we could work on?
Oh, definitely. I really, I am so grateful that I still have my family and that I have some supports around. So I think, you know, focusing on a little more of that would be pretty beneficial to me.
Yeah, and if you have any questions too about the tapping method as well, I'd be happy to help you with it. I've done it quite a bit, so I think it's very beneficial to any client. I mean, it works for various situations like yours. It also is an opportunity for you to say those triggers out loud to yourself and
Mhm.
remind you, like, even though they are there, that you still have other things to keep yourself going and to be happy for. And I mean, you always gotta be thankful for what you have. And,
Mhm.
you know, even though it feels like the worst thing, you gotta point out all the positiveness and something that you feel is the worst.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Is there any other questions you had?
Okay, yeah, I'll work on that this week.
All right, very good. Then I'll look forward to seeing you next week. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
That
Thank
sounds
you,
good.
always.
Thank you.
Thanks.